There are three players from the New York Islanders at the All Star Weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, Lou Lamoriello may not be done dealing. We'll talk about the latest rumors and what Lou may do from here. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could be with us today, and thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. We have got a lot to get to on today's show, but first, if you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question for us, a comment about something we've talked about on the show, or maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, and hey, starts again Monday night after the All Star Weekend, so looking forward to that. I'll give you instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to interact with Islander fans, game time or anytime. We have got a lot to get to, but to me right now, the biggest news is this. Lou Lamoriello, rumors floating around that, he may not be done just yet, even after adding Bo Horvat. And this quote comes from NHL insider Kevin Weeks. And, Weeksy, former Islanders goalie, former, played for a lot of teams, including all three New York area teams. But Weeksy, definitely one of those insiders who's sort of plugged in with a lot of the movers and shakers in this league. And basically, he said this. He said, I think this Islander team has goaltending that's this good, elite, in Sorokin and Varlamov. Varlamov comes in and plays like a number one goalie. You're in every game. They have a chance. We know they didn't have the goal-scoring threat, so now you add Horvat. Is that enough? No. Is it a lot? Yes. It'll certainly help, I believe. But then he said, all things being equal, I don't necessarily think the Islanders are done shopping yet. I do not think they are finished shopping yet. So that is what Kevin Weeks said on NHL Network on Thursday. And it's interesting. Now, some of the names that have been rumored to be available on the market, well, you still talk about Brock Besser and Vladimir Tarasenko, although the odds are that unless those players are rentals only, it would be very difficult for the Islanders to sign them to long-term deals. Although, again, that obviously depends on what they are willing to give up. Because if you include some of the higher-priced players, it does free up a little bit of cap space. But we have to see. The other problem is, and we'll discuss this in a different context a little bit later on, I think Kevin Weeks is right. I think that Lou Lamoriello does have another move coming before the trade deadline, maybe even a couple of more moves. And I think we're looking at possibly a puck-moving defenseman, because I don't think he's completely comfortable with either Robin Salo or Sebastian Aho as a defenseman in the playoffs. And I'm not sure I am either. I think those players are still iffy in their own zone. And to get a defenseman who can move the puck and still be consistent in his own zone, I think would be something that could definitely benefit this Islanders team, but it's not as big a priority as goal scorers. And so, your Bessers and your Tarasenkos, higher priced. Other names, however, that have been bandied about, Ivan Barbashev and Noel Asiari of the of the St. Louis Blues. And I've heard those names bandied about. I just don't know how good a fit they are on the Islanders. First of all, both of those players are natural centers, but what they are is depth pieces and players who don't cost a lot of money. Barbashev is right now 27 years old, won't turn 28 until next December. So he just turned 27 barely a couple of months ago. And he's a player who is not having a great year, 9 goals, 24 points in 51 games. But last year, 26 goals, a career high, and 60 points in 81 games. So, adding him, he has a cap hit of $2.25 million for the year. You get the feeling that it wouldn't be as, big a deal to add him. And he's the type of guy you could even keep. But does he add enough offense? You get the situation where, okay, a player like this, or Asiari also, Asiari is 31, just turned 31, so he's a little bit older, but the cap hit $1.25 million. Again, a natural center. Again, not producing a lot offensively right now, 10 goals, 18 points in 51 games, but in 2019, 2020 with the Florida Panthers in just 66 games, he did score 20 goals. He's not a great passer. He had 20 goals and 7 assists that year, had only a career high of 8 assists back in 2018, 2019. He's matched that this year. But again, this is the kind of player where he doesn't cost you a lot. It's a low risk, high reward kind of not high reward, but low risk, moderate reward kind of a thing that would fit under the salary cap. To me, the only way you acquire another center now, though, is to trade a center away. And I think they would be better off going with wings as far as trying to add offense. And either, to me, you go for sort of the wing equivalent of a Barbashev and an Asiari, or you try to get someone on an expiring deal as a rental. And, then maybe if you can't re-sign Bo Horvat, you could sign that player, or you let them go, depending on how the team does in the rest of the season and possibly into the playoffs. But, right now, I don't think the Islanders have what it takes to pull off another high-profile blockbuster trade, just because the teams that are sellers at the deadline are typically looking for draft picks and prospects. Guess what the Islanders don't have in abundance right now? Draft picks and prospects. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the prospect angle of it in our next segment. We'll go over the top 5 prospects in the Islanders organization right now, and sort of explain where they fit in and what, if anything, the Islanders would want to give up. Because let's face it, you look over the roster right now in Bridgeport, maybe Iskakov is the kind of guy who might be able to come up and help, but a lot of scouts think he's still a year away. There's not a lot of NHL-ready players down in Bridgeport right now who would be considered top prospects. We have more to get to. We'll talk about the prospects, plus the All Star Weekend, and a lot more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sportsbook betting partner because, they are the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download the FanDuel app now so you can bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line, point spreads, to even who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So prospects, and we've talked about it since the trade, and the Islanders have now traded away 4 straight #1 draft picks. Their last #1 pick was Simon Holmstrom, who is now in the NHL. And a couple of weeks ago, The Athletic ranked all the teams' 2023 prospect pools, and the Islanders were ranked 27th. But of course, that included as their #1 prospect, Aatu Raty, who is now a member of the Vancouver Canucks organization. So the top players right now, William Dufour, is the #1 prospect on the Islanders. He is in Bridgeport. We saw him play 1 game with the big club. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but I'm not worrying about that. Dufour, just 20 years old, has a good shot. The big question about William Dufour is his skating ability, and that's the thing he needs to get better at in order to claim a spot on the roster next season. The next highest ranked prospect is Calle Odelius, the defenseman, 18 years old, and not the most offensive minded guy, but a good solid 2-way defenseman, probably a second pair guy once he gets to the NHL, but again, still over in Europe and only 18 years old. Statistically, he's in the second tier league right now, and you get the feeling he is at least a couple of years away right now. Samuel Bolduc is the 3rd ranked player in the Islanders organization. He is with either Bridgeport or the Islanders, depending on when you ask. And I think he's looked solid when called upon to play for the New York Islanders. He's 22, left-handed shot, and kind of projecting as a big top 4 kind of a defenseman. He's 6'4". He can skate pretty well, although skating backwards needs a little bit of work. Probably, maybe a 4, 5, 6 kind of a defenseman. Not necessarily going to be a star, but can be, maybe a Scotty Mayfield kind of a guy, over maybe a little bigger and a little more physical, but sort of that style. The 4th highest prospect in the Islanders organization right now is Ruslan Iskhakov. And Iskhakov, he could play center, he could play wing. He's 22 years old, and look, he has been in Finland, he has been in Germany, now he's in Bridgeport, and got off to a very strong start, cooled off a little bit in the sort of last month or so, but now in the last week, getting back into sort of his groove, and he's got a really good shot, needs to get a little stronger positionally, but overall, someone who is considered up and coming, probably needs another year to get used to North America. And, a lot of scouts not as high on him as I am, but he's good. He's got good hockey sense. Not a lot of size, but very good hockey sense. And the way he's able to sort of manipulate defenders and make them do what he wants them to do, I think is a key to his game. The fifth prospect is already with the Islanders, and that's Simon Holmstrom, 21 years old. And, it took him a little time, Holmstrom, to adjust to playing in North America and the narrower rink and just sort of the way it, the way that it looks. He has put on a little size to go with his frame, and that's very good. Still needs to get into those dirty areas a little bit more. He's a little bit too reluctant to be physical at times, but he is improving in that area. And, at times we've seen him do some good things with the Islanders. And at times we've noticed, hey, Simon Holmstrom, you still have some things you need to do in order to become a full-time NHL player. Now, Holmstrom is 21 years old, so, solid in that respect. He's still young, still has time. And in 24 games, 2 goals, 3 points, and an even plus minus. Here's the thing. 24 games with the Islanders, 3 hits. I think that when I talk about his need to be more physical, right there in a nutshell, that statistic kind of tells you everything you need to know. You should not be playing 24 NHL games and only be credited with 3 hits. Hey, Matt Martin's had that in a shift on occasion. So those are the top 5 prospects available to the Islanders. And the reason I'm going over this now is that, again, at the trade deadline, the teams that are sellers are looking for draft picks and prospects. The Islanders don't have a draft pick this coming year, and it'd be tough for them to trade their 2024 draft pick because of the way the Bo Horvat trade is configured, where the pick is top 12 protected. So if the Islanders end up with one of the first 12 picks this year, they can't trade their pick because they need to know they're not going to have to spend that 2024 pick and send it to Vancouver until they know, and at the trade deadline, they won't know that they don't have a top 12 pick. So the earliest draft pick you could trade is 2025, or you could do the conditional, we'll send you the 2024, and if that doesn't work, if we have to send that to Vancouver, we'll send you the 2025. Or do they send the 2023, even if it is a top 12 pick? There are options, but they look increasingly bad. So picks, the Islanders are not filled with those. Prospects, they're not so filled with those either. One of the probably bottom 3 or 4 prospect pools in the league, according to most scouts. That's why I think the next move by Lou Lamoriello will either be player for player, a future pick, or sort of a depth kind of guy who can help but will not be that 30-goal difference maker kind of player. We still have 3 Islanders going to the All Star game. Only 2 of them are officially representing the Islanders, but we'll talk a little bit about the All Star Weekend, what it means. Plus, we have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So the All Star Weekend, there are 3 Islanders. Only 2 of them are officially representing the Islanders. Well, no, they're all representing the Islanders, but only 2 of them are playing for the Metropolitan Division. Bo Horvat is going to play for the Pacific Division, but will represent the Islanders. So, there's sort of a partial representation there, I guess, if you look at it. Obviously, Brock Nelson was the original pick for the Islanders, and then Ilya Sorokin very deservedly voted to the All-Star team. 19 goals for Nelson, 46 points. He does lead the Islanders in points. 11 of those 46 points coming on the power play. So, Nelson goes and Sorokin. Hard to believe. Look at this. The 923 save percentage, the 238 goals against average, 4 shutouts, and yet his record is 16, 16, and 4, which means that out of the 36 starts, he has only won 16 of them. He's lost 20. Now he got a point in 4 of those 20. But here's a goalie who is playing his heart out, playing so well, and yet has a NHL 500 record. That statistic in a nutshell tells you how badly the Islanders needed a goal scorer. And Bo Horvat right now on pace for exactly 50 goals if he continues to score at the same pace he did with the Vancouver Canucks once he joins the Islanders. Part of the reason the Islanders have played 3 more games than the Canucks did when the deal was made. I think, to me, the All Star Weekend, just have fun. When I was younger and it was a little more of a physical game at the All Star game, I cared a little bit more. Now, to me, the skills competition and sort of the events of the weekend are more enjoyable than the games itself. The 3-on-3 is more fitting, I think. I like the fact that the NHL went that route. It's kind of like playing shinny out there on a pond in some ways, but what you get to see, with the exception of the goalies who are very often hung out to dry in these games, but what you get to see is some of the most skilled players in the game being able to show off what they do. And, as a hockey fan, as long as I don't look at it as a hockey game, it's just a fun little tournament, then I can enjoy the All-Star Weekend. So it's coming in South Florida on Saturday. Looking forward to it. Skills competition, All-Star game, the whole weekend, and really looking forward to and set to enjoy that. So plenty for Islander fans to look at and think about and get their first look at Bo Horvat as he unofficially, or officially anyway, represents the New York Islanders. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And yesterday, Thursday, was the 46th birthday of former Islanders winger Mark Parrish. Parrish, originally a third-round pick of the Colorado Avalanche back in 1996, made his NHL debut with the Florida Panthers, and then came to the Islanders in 2001, had a 30-goal season and 60 points in 2001, 2002. That was his best season with the Isles. Followed that up with a 23-goal campaign, a 24-goal campaign, and then another 24 goals in just 57 games before he was dealt to the LA Kings. Later played for the Wild, the Stars, the Lightning, and the Sabres before hanging up his skates after the 2010-2011 season. Played 345 games with the Islanders, 118 goals, 214 points, and 122 penalty minutes. So Mark Parrish is our Islanders birthday of the day. Good goal scorer, native of Edina, Minnesota, and a guy who really was sort of a solid physical guy who could put the puck in the net. Not a penalty minute kind of guy, but also not afraid to go into the corners and do what he needed to do, and had a darn good shot during his time with the Islanders. So happy birthday, Mark Parrish. He is now 46 years old, and his place in Islanders history is secure. And look, the Islanders made the playoffs 2001, 2, 3, and 4, back-to-back years, and certainly Mark Parrish and his strong play was a big reason for that. Can't believe we are here. This week has been very eventful as far as the big trade was concerned, and now the All-Star game is coming, and we are very much looking forward to the All-Star weekend. But more importantly, Monday, we will have our first view of Bo Horvat in an Islanders uniform in a regular season game. We'll be back on Monday to preview that game and give you all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. Until then, Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.